I do think even if you didn't grow up religious, a lot of people grew up sheltered, you know? Round of applause, how many people did not get a sex talk in here? Didn't get one. Round of applause. Oh, yeah, see? All right, now round of applause, who did get a sex talk growing up? Who did get one? You did right here. Do you mind me asking you how old you were? Is it okay that I'm talking to you? I just want to make sure. If I talk to you and you're not into it, that's completely fine with me. I wouldn't talk to a live entertainer either. Do you consent to crowd work? I need a verbal yes, not just a thumbs up. Yes, see? Not that hard. That's how it's done. All right. All right. How old were you when you got the sex talk? 9. Okay. That seems a little early, but also kind of okay. I don't know how tall you were at 9. Right? Were you asking questions, or were your parents just like, it's time?
My mom took me for a picnic in the garden.
Your mom took you for a picnic in the garden? Fuck you so hard. Are you serious? Your mom took you to a picnic in the garden to tell you the horrors of sex. I'm sorry, I'm having an emotional reaction to that. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. This secret garden sex talk. Holy shit, okay, wow. What's that like? Lorelai Gilmore? Fuck me. So you weren't asking questions or anything. Your mom was just like, it's time. Oh, you were asking questions. See, a lot of people ask questions, and I didn't realize all these kids were so smart. I didn't know we were supposed to be smarter. I never asked any questions when I was a kid, which is so stupid now that I think about it. Because when I was a kid, before I got my period, I had 3 holes, right? I still do. I don't know why I said it like that. I still do, for the record, just for anybody watching. I always have had, always will have. I mean, I think when you get your tubes tied, do they seal it? Oh, I'm gonna Google it. Forget this. This was a tangent. I'll deal with this on my own. But before I got my period, I had 3 holes, and one of the holes wasn't doing anything, right? And I never thought to ask anyone around me, hey, what's this unemployed hole doing between my other 2 holes that are working pretty hard? I just walked around all day like, I don't know, that's my big one. God knows what he's doing. That's where my faith goes. After I saw Music Man, I started calling it my glove compartment, but that is another story. This was my sex talk. So when I was 10, I read what sex was in a book, you know, not planning on it, just kind of like, oh my God, tried to forget. Just assaulted by Judy Blume, quite frankly. And then 2 years later, my dad was driving me home from school, and out of nowhere, he goes, do you know what sex is? And I was like, yeah, Dad, I read in a book. Let's never speak again, right? And he's like, all right, I need you to tell me what it is so I know that you know. My dad made me give him the sex talk. I was like, do you know what it is? He's like, why don't you just tell me what you know, and then I'll tell you what I know. And we'll get to the bottom of this together. I used to ask my parents for relationship advice every time I went through a bad breakup. Don't do that unless you want to learn too much about your parents. I had a terrible breakup in my early 20s, and I remember I was back home. My stepmom was trying to comfort me. She goes, you know, Taylor, there was a guy in my 20s I really wanted to marry, and when it didn't work out, I was devastated. I said, really? I didn't know about this. And my dad goes, I did. She talks about him all the time. And I was like, well, wait, who was this guy? What was his deal? And she goes, well, he was really cool, actually. He was an Alzheimer's scientist. And my dad goes, notice how that's not cured yet. And she's like, wow, honey, well, I hope we never get Alzheimer's. He's like, I hope we do, so we can all forget about this guy. I used to be way too loose with who I asked relationship advice from. I used to ask people in the audience, total strangers. I asked a couple in the front row of a show once, 2 couples therapists who had married each other. Which I know, you ever see like quadruple stuffed Oreos and you're like, enough, right? That is a hat on a hat, it's excessive. But I was like, wow, 2 off-duty couples therapists, you gotta ask them, right? I said, do you guys have any advice for people in relationships, maybe people who are fighting a lot? And they said, we do. You know how a lot of people have a safe word to stop sex? Everyone needs to have a safe word during fights. So I asked a married friend of mine, I said, do you guys have a safe word for fights? And he was like, what? I'm like, it's a word that when you say it, during the fight, it stops the fight. And he goes, oh yeah, we have one of those. I said, really? What is it? He goes, cunt. But I have to say, it doesn't really work if she says it. I was like, Jesus, I was looking for like pineapple, dude, but...